All right. Welcome to the very first edition of the Do You Guru podcast, where I am sitting down with the one and only Adam the Michaels, YouTube sensation.
Wow, I got a "the." I'm like the Ohio State University. I just became like officially official by if you put a "the" in front of it.
You got knighted, my friend. You got dubbed today with on both sides by the sword.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
That. Thanks for the intro.
Of course, brother. Well, good friend, mentor. We're going on a long time of lots of shenanigans between the two of us, and yet here today to really talk about all things Enrollify as it relates to the vision, relates to what it means to the benefit gurus, what it means to the workplace, the environment, the marketplace, all these things that are going on. So we're going to sit here and
guaranteed there will be some shenanigans. I'm just going to go on record and say like that probably a conversation with you and I without shenanigans would be awful.
No, we'd be playing to something that we truly aren't. So shenanigans.
Well, you've always been known to be the enemy of good times and all things that are fun. So
well, incomparable to
that's your sense of humor. That is not your appetite for fun.
Yeah.
How are things in Costa Rica today?
Beautiful, my man. Feels good to be back here after a wonderful holiday season. I got to visit you, the rest of the entire family, and really connect with everybody. And I'm really happy to be back in clear, beautiful skies, hanging out with the kids,
walking through the jungle. Vida.
Pura vida, baby. I got to take my walk through the jungle this morning and walk for about 3 miles, checking out all the homes and houses and beautiful vistas. So I'm feeling alive today. It's the first time I felt capable to get the hell out of bed. What were you going to say, my man?
No, I was just going to say it's awesome. It was good to see you, and I can see how the Pura Vida just is flowing through your body and through your veins. So very exciting that, this opportunity provides you the luxury of being able to do it from anywhere. And it's exciting to be here, exciting to have this first podcast. I think, our objective, obviously, and I think we're probably going to lay some of this out, is like, delivering insight and value to the population of benefit gurus like never before. I think, the road of entrepreneurship is hard. It's difficult. It's challenging, right? And so we're finally at this place where I feel like, we're able to focus on what you've wanted to focus on, and you've been banging me over the head since day one. Like, when do I get to do this? When do I get to do it? We're finally ready to actually start delivering extraordinary value. As the chief culture officer, the CCO. I think, I'm excited to watch this platform and this Do You Guru podcast really come to life. So it's exciting to be part of episode 1. May there be thousands more just like it.
From your lips to God's ears, my friend, as they say. Yeah. From your lips to God's ears. Well, let's talk a little bit about the podcast. I mean, obviously, we're going to spend some time talking about Enrollify and the vision, your role as the founder and CEO. We're going to spend time talking about the value to the benefit gurus, to the marketplace, all the things we alluded to earlier. But, another part that was really important, I think, when you and I talked about, hey, let's launch this podcast and get things going. Your phraseology was something to the effect of, hey, you're not one-dimensional. The people that work here or come to us for an opportunity are not one-dimensional. Yeah. Let's not just make it about all things that are industry related. Let's not just talk about the people who make up this guru community and spotlight them, although we are going to do both of those things. But let's expand beyond that. Let's talk about practices of mindfulness and meditation and breath work and dealing with anxiety. Yeah. Let's talk about what we do for fun and really dive into that work-life balance. But that was when we had that conversation, I think you saw it, man. I changed immediately with my demeanor of like, holy hell, man, this is going to be, we're about to have some fun.
This is not something I have to do. This is something I'm going to get to do. This is amazing. Yeah, totally. Well, what we do is not who we are, right? Like what we do is it's like a small fraction. And I think way too often it becomes too much of who we are. And so I think that one of the ideas of building Enrollify was to create, an environment where people could not just make a living, but make enough to be able to have the life that they dreamed of, or that they wanted to have, whether that meant, to spend more time with their kids or to, work abroad like you from Costa Rica or anywhere in between. I think I think it's essential to see that this isn't one dimensional, and I think that our entire community is built predicated upon this idea that it's in service, right? It's the idea of delivering value to the stakeholders and not vice versa. It's not about extracting value out of people. It's about delivering value to people, and it's every stakeholder in the value chain. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with it because I think the dimensions that you're going to be able to bring in, I think the things we're talking about guests and people that can really bring insight and value, I think is going to be awesome. And then also the idea of spotlighting people that are living the guru experience, like how they're doing it, how they're deploying it in their lives, what it means to them, like how it's helped them, be able to maybe have enough money to buy Christmas gifts, or to survive kind of downturns in their business, or to be able to augment their income in a meaningful way, or be able to live in a remote place where it's extraordinarily beautiful, but be able to access the market. Technology has done so much, and in terms of creating or breaking down barriers to opportunity. And so I think we're going to be able to show people all those things. I mean,
Absolutely.
You are, I would say. And every once in a while, I might jump on here.
You're definitely popping on to some of these things because it's just it's an even more fun dynamic than it already will be. And I think teeing off from there, man, there's some great things that you jumped into. When we talk about not being one dimensional, certainly a lot about obviously because we're not just work cohorts, we're also friends and compadres in many ways. And both of us have been on quite the journey since we met each other, but especially in the last 2 to 3 years, where a lot of priorities have changed. A lot of things have shifted in terms of where we spend our time, and really seeking to find that balance of, we have a passion for what we do from a work perspective. And I think, it's fair to say that both of us really enjoy our family, really enjoy our kids, getting together with our family and friends, and finding a place to really express ourselves, not only professionally, where, after what have we been working together now? Is it 14 years, 15 years almost?
Yeah. I think more than that.
That's crazy. I think 2009, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. And so to look at the evolution of that time together, and just to be full transparency, when we first met, not that we weren't having a ton of fun, but like all of our fun was like in the office, blowing work out, going out and having drinks and food and cocktails and celebrating, and then coming back and then putting in 14, 15-hour days. And there was a lot of fun to that time. There was a lot of glory. We certainly enjoyed the hell out of ourselves. And I think we're both at a spot where it's like, okay, it can't just be work. There's this other side of time with the kids and friendship, and the ability to jump in the pool with the kids and go to Dylan's soccer games, and all these other aspects of life that really make it much more dynamic and fulfilling. So to be able to pull the curtain back and talk about my journey and your journey outside of the professional realm is something that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's seasons of life, right? And each season of life is a little bit different. And I think I was gifted the opportunity to move on. It didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And I think it started on a journey of like, was at the top of every, from the outside looking in, like you're at the top of the game, right? Like you're leading a team of 5,000 people, you're performing at the highest level. And yet you have beautiful family and everyone's healthy. And like, all this stuff should have been, making well into 7 figures a year. Everything should be going perfectly. And I was somewhat empty, right? I certainly wasn't happy. I was, parts of my, I guess ego were being satiated. And there was a lot of applause and there was a lot of economic reward, but there was gaps for sure. And I think a little bit time away and a little bit of reflection allowed me to be able to reprioritize and re-envision and really think about, kind of business in general and what was missing from those things. And I think those informed kind of the next chapter and the next phase of my life. And when I extended, the opportunity to you and said, hey, let's do this. you know, you had to wait, right? Like because I knew what getting back into the entrepreneurial seat meant, right? I knew it was like, I'm going to just get pummeled in the face over and over, and I'm going to I'm going to spend all my savings, and I'm going to, you know, and I'm going to be dealing with a lot of hardship. I was like, I didn't want to drag you through that. I was like, no, dude, just stay, keep cashing the checks. Like, just as much as it was like painful to try and do things by myself, fortunately I found Aubrey, and
You did talk me into staying, by the way, because I was about to scoop that goldfish out of the tank and walk out of there to, like, you know, the Renee Zellweger to your Tom Cruise, a la Jerry Maguire, man. I was ready to go.
Oh, you complete me.
Circle.
100%. No, listen, there was a lot. I think there was a lot of people that were like that. I think we had something really special going on that was destroyed long before it should have been. But maybe exactly when it was supposed to, you know, at the same time. And so yeah, man, it's good to be in a place where the fun is back, and we can kind of see the horizon, and we're watching this massive growth, and we're watching these, you know, big deals being executed and closed, and we're seeing people, you know, the manifestation of kind of what we envisioned, you know, when we started this thing, you know, and I think, you know, I'm sure we're going to get into that a little bit in the podcast, but you know, we were living very successfully in what I would estimate was a pretty broken model, and was broken for a lot of stakeholders. And to step outside that and go, okay, well, like, how do we fix it? I think is a major challenge. And you know, I sometimes you wake up and you realize, like, oh, geez, we're actually living. It's actually working. It's actually happening. So kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm going to go down one memory. This was circa 2013 or 14. And it's interesting because you had said to me a long time ago, I remember you and I used to literally race to the office to be the first one there, right? We would try to beat each other there. Like, you would get there at 5:30 and I would walk in at, you know, 5:35 and be like, all right, tomorrow I'm going to be here at 5:15. Right. And then you would, you know, show up at 5:05. And then on the back end, right, you had Lila and Dylan and Jody, your family. And for you, an important priority at that point was like, I'm always going to be home for dinner, right? I'm always going to be there for the field trip, dad, and all the soccer games and camps and all the things that were there. And I remember busting your balls one time and being like, so you beat me by, you know, 20, 30 minutes in here, but like, I'm staying later. And you said to me, yeah, you know, one day that'll probably change. One day, you'll, you know, you're married, but you'll have kids and you're going to want to be home for dinner. And those are going to be things that are going to be really important as I start to well up with this memory. And I remember thinking, this guy's, you know, he's crazy. I'm always going to be about the work. And what's interesting about that fact is I was all about the work for so long, and that the work was always the priority, and the applause and the paycheck and the money. And you know, it's interesting that you talked about, you know, having all the success, and on paper from the outside, everything looked like so good, on the top of the world, you know, king of the world, right? Yeah. Hands up and raised up in victory. And behind the scenes, you know, I felt a little bit about of that same thing of like, there's something really missing here. And it took me a while to get to that space.
You know, it's funny. You look at the number of people. I was actually watching a podcast the other day where they were talking about prosperity, and how prosperity, you can see this is happening in our country right now to a certain extent. But when you get to a place of prosperity, that you know, of high prosperity, there's a lot of people that go down this road of self-destruction, right? Like, when they hit that level, and it's because they're, you know, they're unfulfilled in some other meaningful way. And usually it's a spiritual journey, right? Like, and what they all determine is it's all about love, right? Like, that's, you know, if you want to go all hippy dippy, which I'm sure you're going to do on like podcast 3 or 4, but
100%.
maybe sooner. But you know, there's a lot of truth to that. And so why wait? Like, what, maybe we can make some influence and make some impact, and actually give people the ability sooner to have the things that are really important to them. And you know, and how do you in today's world remove the friction and fragmentation that keeps people from being able to have those things? And you know, I remember like talking to someone once who had, they bought their fourth house, and we were talking about, I'm like, gosh, I can't think about 4 mortgages, 4 tax bills, 4 gardeners, 4 pool people. Like, it must be just like a nightmare. Like, what a pain in the ass to have all of that responsibility. Like, it doesn't sound good at all. It just sounds like more work. Like, and it's so funny. I have so much admiration for you for like, because I still live in the big house in Bel Air, right? Like with the pool and all. Like, I have so much admiration for you that like you got rid of all your shit and like you just decided to like, no, you know what? There is something more than this, and it is going back to a simpler life, and it is scaling down and getting rid of all of this stuff, and it makes me think of the old George Carlin skit, right? Like, why do you have a house? It's a place to keep all your shit, and when you get too much shit, then you have a garage sale and other people buy your shit, and then so you can buy more stuff. And how come your stuff is stuff and other people's stuff is shit? Like, you just start to realize the ridiculously of what it is.
Great
And
bit,
so
by the way.
it's a great bit, but I think we get to this place like where maybe, just maybe, through the podcast, maybe through the additional economics, maybe through the community, we're able to remove the veil of ignorance and open up opportunities to people to have a better quality of existence, right? Like, and whether that's the person who's outside of our industry today and is looking for a gig economy that doesn't require them turning their car into a taxi, or doesn't require leaving their their young children in bed while they get out and put themselves at risk. Or maybe it's because somebody wants to, they want to travel the world, or they want to see America's national parks, or they dream of living abroad, and they have this expertise, and how can they monetize? How can they make that happen? Like, those are the things that are real, right? And that's what Enrollify is doing. Yes, we're improving the consumer experience, right? Yes, we're solving for the challenges that HR departments have, and we're solving for carriers, issues in terms of penetration and engagement, and we're increasing revenue to agencies. All that stuff important, but to me, what really gets me going, and I know it's what really gets you going, is the value to the guru population. Like, the idea that we can allow somebody to be free of politics, free of geographic limitation, free of taking what they're given and giving them, empowering them with the ability to say yes to what they want, when they want, and determine what the costs are. A place where today they can be an Uber X but become a black car by building credentials. Like, to me, that's the most exciting part about this. The most exciting part about this is helping people achieve the things that they want to achieve in life, whether this is a bridge, right, or it's a destination. Like, I've always believed that there's a couple of things that everybody should do in their life, right? Like everybody, in my opinion, if you want to be a well-rounded human being and a successful entrepreneur and a successful professional, I think you should work in the service industry. Hopefully, when you're young, like, be a waiter, because what you realize is what's happening in the back of the house and what's happening in the front of the house are not necessarily the same thing. Right. And the people in the front of the house need to be like, with the back of the house be sweat and chaos. Front of the house is like white tablecloth, and it's perfect.
Calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah. And it also teaches you like that people are assholes generally, and you've got to find a way to navigate them and not be one of them. And so I think being a waiter or a busboy or a bartender forces you to be a great tipper, right? Like, it places a higher value on the work they're doing. I think the second job everyone should have is straight commission sales. And I've always said this. I think that straight commission sales is an invaluable way to understand, like, you get to eat what you kill, right? Like, when there is no disparity between value delivered and what you reap, total clarity. Doesn't care what your sexual preference is, or what your race is, or any, like, it does not care. It does not discriminate, right? It rewards you for your effort and your execution. And I think there's some real value of that, because then you don't have quiet quitters, Like there's not a whole lot of people that have been in straight commission sales that are retiring and not telling their boss that they've retired, right? That is reserved for people that their first job is in the government, and then they stay there until until they retire. And then hopefully the third thing that people do is they spend some time as a benefit guru. And I think because the opportunity is to learn about financial wellness and to understand all of the different pillars of financial security, and to be able to agnostically understand how all these puzzle pieces go together. And I think that that's limited. It was limited in the previous place where you were myopically focused on selling, this company's this product and this company's that product. And you never really got the ability to tell the whole story or talk about the whole picture in a way that was generous, right? Like you're a generous giver of your information. And hopefully the guru population that's finding their way to us, that's what they identify as, right? They're these generous givers that have a curiosity, and they want to be experts, and they want to have knowledge, and they want to share that knowledge freely with other people, and help them, make good decisions, because good decisions lead to greater financial stability, right? And the implications of that are profound. Maybe the difference between someone, filing financial bankruptcy due to medical expenses, or just having the right coverage to be able to get the care that they need, or who knows what other implications. Just a caring thought. We'll probably go down these roads later, but I remember during COVID, we had a company that we were working with in Oregon, and there were fires going on, and I remember it was a big grocery chain, and these were frontline workers. And I remember one of the gurus reaching out to us and saying, I can't tell you how I had this conversation I had someone just completely break down and was sobbing because they were all alone. They felt alone in this world. And they were, they'd been evacuated, and they were fearful, and people, around them were dying from COVID, all this kind of stuff. And so sometimes just being someone who's there to listen, just to be an empathetic human support, right? Like to be a pillar for somebody else. I think maybe that's what our world is missing, is just a tinge of humanity, like just a little bit more of other centeredness and caring. I think it can go a long way to solving some of the ills that plague our society.
Agreed. That's a powerful way to open up this conversation too. And I'm going to add one more thing to that, because when you start to evaluate being an entrepreneur, so much of the content out there is like, live, eat, work, sleep, breathe, this one thing, only do this.
Hustle your face off.
It's totally. Like you gotta work, 22 hours a day, and then, sleep one, and, sleepwalk that other one. So it's like, there's so much. And yet there's this balance, there's this refinement that I think more and more people are going through, that I really believe we're starting to see, because you're hearing pockets of it now. And my belief again is that sometimes all it takes is permission, right? It takes permission from somebody that you look up to, that has more money. Like we talked a lot about, worksite marketing leads to credibility, because your employer is the one person who drives a nicer car, has a nicer home, wears a nicer suit than you, right? And so when you start hearing people who have this type of influence talking about the importance of balance, spending time with kids, doing these other things, even though none of us need permission, sometimes we're in that spot where when you get it, it's like, oh, like,
it's funny. It's funny.
Can do this.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it was one of the reasons I stopped putting out content a couple of years ago. I felt I'd said all the things I needed to say, because maybe some of the people that are going to watch this podcast saw some of the Elevate series, and we're going to repurpose some of the material. But there was so much noise. There were so many people, like what I'm going to call like fakers, standing in front of like someone else's Lamborghini, right? Or an Airbnb that they rented. And, like, this is the lavish lifestyle, and you could do it too, and hustle your face off. And, and I felt like it was a farce. And I felt like there were so many people that were masquerading as something. What I'll tell you is that your journey is authentically yours. And I did work 20-hour days, and I did hustle my face off, and I did grind and grind and grind. And I think for you to think that you can be an entrepreneur and not do those things early on, like, you earn the opportunity to have flexibility. Like, flexibility is not given to you as part of being an entrepreneur. It's something that's earned. And I think that what you have to understand is that we're not that the world is dynamic. It's not stagnant. It's not the same as it was 20 years ago. It's not the same as 15 years ago. Technology is changing it. And one of the things that I, used to drive me crazy when I was in an executive role was the lack of focus around conversion and retention. Like, what's the success ratio 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? And how do you fix it? Well, you can increase compensation, you can increase bonuses, or you can find new ways for people to monetize their license. You can get shelf space. Like, there's all sorts of things. And there was just a lack of focus on that, in my opinion. And while I was focused on it, we saw a lot of success. We saw growth. But globally, that wasn't a problem. And I think it is also something we wanted to do here. But getting back to your point around the voice and the narrative, I think everybody's journey is their own. Like, I used to always say, like, I will be as fair as possible by treating everybody differently. And I think that
one of my favorite quotes of yours, by the way, all the time, right?
Yeah,
I go back to that because it's beautiful.
But it's also real, because we as humans, our fingerprints are all unique. We as individuals, our DNA is all unique. Our journeys are all unique. We may have some similarities, like somebody might have blue eyes and brown eyes and blonde hair and, and whatever. But, like, we also have a lot more differences, right? In terms of our experience. And so to think that a journey is going to be linear, it's not. And it moves in every direction all the time. And so, I think you have to figure out what's yours. And there's not a single voice that's doing it. I think what you were alluding to is that there's an increasing focus on wellness and well-being. And I think that's some of the echo chamber that you find yourself in, because of, one, you have the luxury, but two, I think you've been given the latitude to endeavor into it, and you've found the richness in it. And what I think is really important, and the most important thing, and hopefully this is my best quote ever, is who you are is not what you do. Who you are is not what you do. Right? It's a small sliver. And if you step back and you think about what you want to be and what you want your life to be, then it's just about making choices. It's making choices to prioritize spending time with your family and turning off your phone and leaving it somewhere else. And it's about making a choice to double down on things that feed your soul, and as opposed to things that take away. And maybe that's friendships. Maybe that's the church you belong to. Don't just allow the comfort of pain that's familiar to keep you from, the uncertainty that's out the other side of the door. Right? I think you and I have both been on spiritual journeys over the last couple of years.
Fair to say.
Yeah, fair to say. And like, who thought you'd be back where it all began? You know what I mean? Like it's a really interesting journey. Like, and again, I think it comes back to, like, where we get in life. It becomes about spirituality. It becomes about connection. It becomes about love. But I think who you are is not what you become. And I think that the voice of finding what's true, your truth, is probably the most important thing. And I used to think that was the corniest phrase. Oh, speak your truth. Like, oh, yeah, my truth. It's just overused.
Well, it can be. It depends. Yeah, I was going to say it depends on show me the source, and we'll talk about that. But you bring up something that's also really poignant. I think another thing that you used to say to me all the time that I loved is, you can't hold me in contempt for changing my mind. Right? Yeah. If we were to see this podcast right now and the conversations that we have, 8-9 years ago, we'd be like, who are these freaking guys? What are they talking about? Yeah, what are you talking about? No grind and no hustle. Like, what is this?
What are those mala beads that guy's wearing?
Yeah. What in the hell? Spiritual journey.
Wear their ties and their pocket squares.
Yeah, exactly.
They were not wearing cufflinks, which by the way, I still have an awesome closet full of suits.
Yeah, I not so much for me with the sale to get out here, and yet, I think that's a beautiful part of the journey, and I think that's what you're hitting on when you talk about that each person's journey is their own. Which it doesn't matter where you're at, that's your path. Enjoy it. If it's clicking all the boxes and ringing all the bells, and you're having a blast, dude, go pop bottles all day. Do that thing, like enjoy the life that you have, and if you're asking a question, like we found ourselves at some point going, what's missing here? What is that next thing?
Also, like, clear the table. Like, money's important.
100%. No, right? we're not going to say that at all in any of these podcasts.
Like, I'm not really interested in like going and living in a bus in the woods. Like, my idea of roughing it's a hotel without room service.
Yeah.
Like,
I read into the wild.
I rented a yacht, like a catamaran, like to go sail the Sea of Cortez for my 50th birthday. Like money is important. And I think what you have to do is you have to find the vehicle that's going to allow you to have income that allows you to support the quality of life that you want. Like, one of the things I said to you about when you said to me, hey, I think I'm going to move to Costa Rica, I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. I was like, that's the greatest thing because what I want is I want gurus to see that and go, yeah, awesome. I'm going to go and live in Panama. We've got some that live in Panama. We've got another that's traveling across the United States, seeing national parks and with a Starlink and checking, basically on that journey. And maybe you want to go live in France, or you want to go experience Portugal, or maybe you just want to do it for a month or 6 months, but you need to have some sort of income. Again, like, we wanted to give the guru population the flexibility to have all of the things, right? Whatever all the things are to you, we knew that it was important for you to have all of the things.
All of the things, all of the time, right? Yeah. Be able to have that experience to go out with it.
Or to have the choice. Right.
Well, that's a good point too, right? A lot of people feel very stuck in whatever it is they're doing because of the home, because of the mortgage, and they don't know a better way, or they don't know an opportunity to create for themselves that can allow them to, run out, go surfing for 2 or 3 hours, and then be able to log in at 8, 9 o'clock because they're on Central Time. They're here in Panama or Costa Rica or whatever. And they go, great. Yeah. I surf every morning for 3 or 4 hours. I log in, I knock out 4 to 6 hours of work. I, back at the bar for a burrito and a burrito and an 805. And that's my day. Like, great.
Not everyone's going to be a web designer. Not everyone's going to be be able to do work, that enables it. So I think I think we're on to something. Hopefully more people start to lean in and take that, because I think there's so often we make decisions where we rob ourselves from the experience of the richness of life because we feel like our obligations that are here prevent us from doing so. Like, Airbnb your own house, like, rent it out and go away for a month. Like, do it, like, take your kids and go see the world. Like, take the summer off and go and do something extraordinary. Because that you're not going to get that time back. I don't know. It's just a shift of perspective and a shift of change, but we don't need to beat this dead horse too much. But no. I think you and I are both on the same page there. But you're right. We would have laughed at ourselves 10 years ago.
100%. It would have been comical, and yet here we are. Probably.
Well, I think what I believed was it was a destination that when I get to this place, then I'm going to do it. And you know what I've seen happen? I've seen people die at 50 years old and never get there. I've seen people go through illness that prevents them, when they thought they were going to get there, now all of a sudden they can't. I've seen people go through some financial challenge, right? That was unexpected. And, you always make more, right? Like you can always make more. And what I found is that I never regret spending the money that I spent. I always regret not having had the experience that I missed out on.
Yeah. Well, that look, man, I think that's a bullseye for this statement, and it'll tee us off nicely. My thought, and I think it's a very common one, is that, when you start talking about people on their deathbed, no one ever said, I wish I made more money, right? It's, I wish I spent more time with family. I wish I spent more time with friends. I wish I did this. And for a lot of people, they view the destination as happiness instead of viewing the journey to the destination as that part of happiness. So,
Amen.
so many of us are like waiting. Oh, when I get this, I'll be happy. When I get that, I'll have fun. When I, and it becomes about the next thing. And when I get the raise and the promotion, and that comes with more jobs or more responsibility and time commitment and all this. And you don't ever get to that space.
You're just closer to the sun, Icarus. You're just closer to the sun.
That wax is melting. Those feathers are coming apart, brother. Fast and furious. So that dovetails nicely into, one of the things I wanted to tee off, and we're, 30 plus minutes in now to start talking about this, but I think it's been a journey well fraught to get here. But, I'm a brand new benefit guru and I come into the system. Like, let's talk about what that actually looks like for that person. Like, what does it mean to be a benefit guru, to experience some of the freedom and the flexibility that we're talking about, and how the system was designed to give people that. So take us through, like, jumping onto the system and finding some of that flexibility.
Well, I think, I think the idea of the system was to democratize access to the benefit guru population, right? So we have subscribers that use our SaaS system, our SaaS solution. They can be carriers, they can be agencies, they can be enrollment firms, and anybody that needs that believes in the value of human decision support, concierge level decision support for that last mile of service, now has access to a national footprint of individuals. Today, that number is close to 5,000. They speak, I think collectively, they have about 40,000 years of experience. They speak 17 different languages, right? They're in every state in the United States. And, before Enrollify, the only way that you could access those people were either trolling a Facebook page and hoping that you would get somebody, or digging through like a list of people, or calling a friend of a friend and saying, do you know somebody in Tuscaloosa? Do you know somebody over here? And hoping that you just got whatever showed up, right? You just hoped that person was capable. And so what we wanted to do was give people the ability to build credentials and build a profile that allowed them to differentiate themselves. So, if you're building a profile and you want to differentiate yourself, what are things in a modern world that you would do? Think of Match.com or think of Yelp. Well, you need a good photo. Like, I'm not talking glamour shots, but I'm also not talking like selfie, like somewhere in between, like that's
not beer bonging on Lake Havasu. That's not a damn it.
Probably not. Like,
I gotta change that.
A solid paragraph about who you are. It should be somewhat agnostic. Remember, we're delivering, if you want to democratize your abilities and you want to stand out as an obvious choice, you want to be seen as someone who has a broad understanding of a wide, varied amount of knowledge and experience. You don't want to be like, oh, I work for this carrier or I do that. You want to use an agnostic email. So adambenefits@gmail, as opposed to my, .colonial email, or my Aflac or my combined email. You want to have a video, like the video presentation. Think about what you're going to say. It doesn't need to be highly produced, but to each his own. You can do it highly produced as well. There's so much technology out there today. Record yourself and talk about what you love about the business and how long you've been doing it, and there's like, the idea here is if you're meeting somebody, think of you're sitting across from a broker or the head of a carrier or someone in an enrollment firm, and they're looking for somebody of a certain caliber. What do they want to see? Right? So that's your picture, that's your bio, that's your video, but it's also your E&O insurance. It's also your long-term care certification. It's also the integration with NIPR so that all of your licensing information is in there.
Language is spoken.
Yeah, language is spoken. And then once you've built that profile, that's the first step. Then it's all about engaging on the system. So you say, well, how can I engage in the system? I haven't been invited to anything yet. Start taking courses. We have hundreds of professional development courses that are agnostically designed, right? So this is not carrier-specific training, although there are some carrier trainings on there as well. It's what's an HSA? What's an HRA? How do those things work together? What's an HDHP? Like, all of these things that if you're explaining the puzzle or the tapestry of benefits and how it all goes together, that will help you become more educated. So the more you engage the system, the more your guru score goes up, and the higher your guru score is, the higher you rank in search. And so as you take courses and you finish the exam, those will go to your guru score. There's badging in the system. It'll go to your guru score. We're going to give you every single time you successfully execute a strategy, it goes to your guru score. When you're talking to employees and you've been invited to a case after the enrollment, we're going to ask them what their experience was, and let them know. Just like when you're at a restaurant and they say, hey, or you work with someone in customer service, hey, you're going to receive a phone call, would you please? Same thing. Hey, you're going to receive a notification after this, and it would mean the world to me if you gave me a 5-star rating and shared your experience, right? If you think I'm deserving of it. I will tell you 94% of people that give feedback give a 5-star rating. And so that, in our system today, and this is a huge differentiation between the 50% that are dissatisfied. And I can't tell you the number of times we share with a broker, we share with a carrier, we share with someone else, like, hey, look, this is what this person said, right? They said, this was the best enrollment experience I've ever had. I feel more confident in my decision support ever because of Bill. Or, Janet was amazing. She was so knowledgeable and so patient. I felt better about my decisions than I ever have in the past. Those types of things will elevate you when you're being searched and when you're being looked for.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of things in there that you said, Adam, that are really pointed. It's taking the time to not only build something that looks great, a la, Match.com, like you were saying, for if you're going to get a date. And this is professional dating, right? This is what it is. And it's a whole lot better than Farmers Only. Not to knock it, I haven't been on it, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. And so to be able to like take some time on it, and look, to your point, you don't need to have, Scorsese or Tarantino direct your, 30 to 60 minute clip of intro. If you can get them, great. I mean, Tarantino's near the end of his, what has he got? One more film left and he's done. He's hanging it up apparently. But this ability to really like put some time in and like, I think the part where you said like, what is that person looking for? If I'm, putting together a team of people to go out and educate my employees, like, I want to see that there's some polish, that they can put a sentence together, that they have some empathy in their voice when they're talking, that they're articulate. Yeah. All of those are the things that if you can't spend 5-10 minutes putting that up and putting yourself, in front of somebody and being camera ready, looking sharp, like that could be the difference.
Yeah, I think sometimes, man, people find their way to our platform through, whether it's on a case or through, in a very specific situation. They don't understand the full scope or the full potential of it, right? They think, oh, this person who invited me, that's the sum total of all my experiences. And if they have a lousy experience, then they think that the two are synonymous. What I'll tell you is that we have, dozens of agency users. We have a growing number of carrier users. And we had almost 1 million people educated last year across the platform, and it'll probably double this year, right? We'll probably more than double. With the announcement with Prudential, we've got other things in the works. So Guardian, Prudential, we have a lot of large national carriers now that are using our software and using our population. And so, you're giving yourself, opening up an unlimited amount of opportunity. Now there's gaps in your calendar, and it's up to you, right? You received a notification that says, hey, bing, bing, are you interested? Like, do you want something? You get a text message on your phone, and, the next question is like, do you want to work on this? And I think, to get those messages, you have to do something that is going to make you stand out as the obvious choice. And we have content also in the system that helps you do that. But that's where it starts, I think. I think there's a lot of misinformation, right? So sometimes someone who invites them will say, oh, don't take courses. They don't really mean anything. Well, they don't mean anything to that user, but they mean stuff to other users. And they say, oh, well, don't worry about your photo. That's not really important. Or your video. That's not really important. Well, what those people, may be doing is just trying to save you some time, but they also are keeping you from being exposed to other opportunities. And so just think of it more broadly. Think of this as an opportunity to build credentials outside of your geography. So there's no hierarchies, there's no politics, there's no limits to who gets to access you or see you. And then again, you're still up to you. You're much better off having your own accounts, closing your own deals, and having other people enroll your accounts, which, by the way, then you can use Enrollify for that purpose, right? You could actually source enrollers for yourself. That's a whole other story. Maybe we'll get into it later on in the conversation. But, the idea here is it's on your terms.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant part of that argument too. And that transitions really into one of my next questions that perfectly, because you talked about how people come into the system. But Adam, I've been on the system for a year and a half now, 2 years. I didn't really have a quick start or get into it. Like, where do I go from here?
Yeah. So, well, one, mea culpa, right? I have so much gratitude and appreciation for the pioneers, right? For the first couple thousand benefit gurus that followed us onto the platform. They said, all right, I want to be part of this, or they found their way to it. They stumbled into it, and maybe they didn't reap opportunity the way they thought. They thought day one, boom, I'm going to have a profile. I'm going to have my inbox is going to be flooded. And it didn't happen that way. And what I'll tell you is that, as an entrepreneur, the vision you have and getting to that place, there's a big gap between those two things. And I think where we started versus where we are today, we have a lot more demand on the system. So if you think about Uber as an example, you have riders and you have drivers. For us, the drivers are benefit gurus. The riders, the demand comes from the carriers and the enrollment firms and the agencies, right? And so because we didn't have enough riders, there were drivers that were sitting around waiting, going, I don't know if this is worth it. And so what I would just ask you is give us another chance, right? Give us a chance, because there is an increasing amount of demand, and it just took a while to get that momentum going. And as I said, we think we have a clear line of sight to doubling this year, and really increasing the amount of opportunity. But we had people that are making $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 a month on the platform, augmenting their income. And we have some people that are doing a lot less than that. But if you haven't made a lot of money, the way to start doing it is, one, clean up your profile, make sure it's good. And, and then, also don't feel free to reach out to us. Let us know, like Hager and Tiffany and Taylor. We have a whole team that's dedicated to you and to delivering value to you. So if you're not getting opportunities and you want more opportunities, you want to be considered, reach out. We'll put you on kind of the hot list. We have some plans to try and have rising stars, create some new things inside of the algorithm to push people along. But certainly we can put you on a hot list and recommend you. The other thing I will tell you is licensing. So not that you need to run out and get all, licensed in 50 states. That's not necessarily the thing, but there are certain markets that have more population and more demand. So Florida, California, Texas, New York, Pennsylvania, right? Illinois. These are the places, Ohio, Michigan. These are the states that I would strongly recommend having having a license in. You can always add more. A lot of them are inexpensive, but I don't know that getting an Alaska license is going to dramatically increase the amount of demand. Although we had a big case this year in Alaska, so that could bode well for you if you do. So maybe put in your profile that you're willing to get additional licenses for the right case opportunities, something to that effect.
Awesome. Yeah, look, I think you hit a lot of great points there. And then number one, reaching out for anybody who's listening to this, who's had a call with Tiffany or Taylor. There's nothing but positive feedback that comes back from interaction with those two superstars right there. And, when we get a feel for you and you reach out, and again, this articulation of what I'm looking for and what I want, and I care about people and I want to help, and like, great. Like we do put you people on a fast track list, right? And do give them more opportunities. And to your point, Adam, this is going to be a really big year, right? And we're definitely going to need to step up and find an amount of benefit gurus that can jump into the system and, get it done, and look, we've got a great LMS system, as we intimated before, that if you're not sure about how to sell a specific product, whether it's carrier specific or product specific, there's training for you. There's all these opportunities for you to come in and really level up. And I think, one of the advantages that we have in being agnostic, and this is, some of the purview of the benefit gurus, is one of the things that everybody has said they liked is how much they have skilled up by working on different cases that have sat outside what their bailiwick is, right? That have sat outside what their everyday source of income is, and to be able to augment it with something where they're going, oh, I'm learning a little bit more about HSA or this long-term care plan or all these pieces, particularly with the changes in long-term care. Maybe that's something to tee off on next, but there's a windfall of opportunity that's coming as a result of that.
Yeah, and before I talk about long-term care, and we could talk about a lot of big opportunities that are coming on the horizon, both because of case details or shifts in the environment. The other thing I want to say is our technology's gotten better, right? Like we were a startup. So like if your experience like early on was like, oh, this thing didn't work, or I had this problem, or I couldn't get this to work, or we heard, right? Like we had problems, we had issues, we had things that broke on us, like in the middle of fourth quarter open enrollment season. We've rectified them. They're better and better. And we've gone through the right certifications. We're a SOC 2 certified now. And so we've it's hard. And I'm preaching to the choir. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. Building a business is not easy. And again, what you put out, someone said to me early on, if you're not embarrassed about what you put out 6 months ago, then you waited too long to put it out. And for sure, early on, our guru population kind of took it in the chin a little bit, because of some technology issues that have been resolved. And I think we're getting better and better all the time with that.
One of the great things about working with somebody and having such a great friendship is I've literally wrote down tech challenges and you jumped into that right away. You've hit like 3 questions on the fly. So I don't know if we're just communicating here, but it's working really well. That was gonna dive into the opportunities with long-term care and beyond that. So why don't you go ahead and tee off on some of the things. So I know we just did a webinar that was great.
Yeah, we had a webinar with Steve Kane, who's one of the foremost experts in long-term care. I'm on a panel later on this year for the ILTCI, which is the long-term care conference. I was asked to be a panelist talking about AI and ChatGPT and where AI is valuable and where it's not. And a big chunk of what my belief system is around that is that nothing replaces human experience and nothing replaces people. And the irony of trying to get rid of humans out of human resources is not lost on me, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of attention on long-term care. They've passed a law in the state of Washington. It's being looked at in a lot of blue states today around having something that addresses the long-term care issues. It may not happen, before the election, but it may happen shortly thereafter. We'll see what transpires. Bottom line is long-term care is kind of in the buzz. It's in the conversation today. And if you're not long-term care certified, then you probably should take that course. It's literally like a 20-hour, online course that you can get a state certification for, and then upload that in your profile. It's not housed by an IPR. It's not an actual license, but it's a continuing ed. You'll get credit for continuing ed, which you need to do anyway. But then you'll be certified to be able to not only talk about the products and sell the products, but also you're going to open up more opportunities for yourself. Beyond that, we've got new relationships that are talking about major, accounts. We're talking about state governments. We're talking about, for significant populations, 70, 80,000. We're talking about large health systems. So there will be a tremendous amount of opportunity coming your way throughout the course of the next 12 months and beyond. I think we have hit a place of velocity that's really starting to pick up. Obviously, a lot of this, our industry as a whole is, I think it's around 60%, in the fourth quarter. We are not immune from that issue, but we're trying to balance it out with new hire onboarding throughout the year and moving into mid markets that are a little bit more flexible and so forth. So lots of things coming down the pipe.
Yeah, and I look, to me, that just creates a ton of opportunity for people coming in, right? Whether you're brand new to the business, you're just starting out, or you're, maybe at the twilight of your career and you're just looking for something to supplement your income. The kind of control that we're talking about, and this is something to tee off on as well, Adam, is like taking control of your calendar and what that looks like for somebody who has opportunities. So I've gone out and I've put together a killer profile and bio. I've uploaded my national producer number. I've got my E&O insurance. I got the 11 different state licenses that I have in there, and I'm looking for these opportunities, right? And part of my goal in this year is that as a new agent or as a newer agent, that I want to still have some of that freedom and flexibility. Let's talk about that person who's coming in, who is training, who wants to be able to augment their income and still maintain that flexibility. Let's talk about the calendaring process and the acceptance of a new proposal and things like that.
Yeah, so one, we built in our technology the ability to actually put your calendar into the system now, which means it'll skip over you, during those time blocks and stuff, which is a game changer in terms of availability and accounting for your responsibilities. Look, the reality is, like, a lot of people that are from the guru population are not truly independent enrollers. They have a primary affiliation, whether that be with Combine or Colonial or Aflac or Guardian or Allstate, and that's probably not going to change, right? Like where your bread is buttered. Like that's where your primary kind of source of income is. The idea is that many people that come into this space, and this always broke my heart, didn't leave because they hated the products, they hated the industry, or they hated the leadership. They left because they weren't making enough money, right? They weren't making enough to make ends meet. And so would you rather go get a second job working at a movie theater, managing a retail store, driving an Uber, or would you rather double down on becoming even more expert and becoming more skilled in the space you're working in, and be able to understand what's going on elsewhere and work with those opportunities when they come in? This isn't about abandoning what you're doing as your primary function. This is about augmenting your income and monetizing your license and growing and monetizing your expertise. And I think
easiest game of would you rather that I've ever played right there, right? Like that can normally get uncomfortable.
I think what you have to also understand is that the market for voluntary benefits, particularly, which are where most of those people are connected to a voluntary insurance company, is becoming commoditized. And the more that it becomes commoditized, the more fragile your market share is. So when you talk about opportunities, you want to be able to work for all of the opportunities and not just limited to the market share that you have. Because somebody may not like the carrier that you work for, right? Somebody might not like the comp plan that carrier has. Someone may not like the this or that, or it may just be a relationship thing, which we all know is really where most business comes from. Again, nothing changes for some people. But for a lot of people in the guru space, again, it's about, would you rather suffer and fail or not make enough money? I guess, would you rather suffer? Would you rather make enough money and be forced to quit? Or would you rather be able to augment your income representing multiple carriers? I think
and look, I think inside of that sits, right? Because you're not saying like, go leave and don't go back to this one carrier, right? But would you rather like do what you're really good at and sell something else, or go drive Uber or Instacart, right? Like it's another job, another opportunity, career opportunity, gig economy work, right? That you can do that sits inside of your expertise, your learned expertise.
Yeah.
that allows you to do something from home, working remotely, set your own schedule where you're
Yep.
not subject to your phone pinging you to go pick somebody up or go do a delivery, right?
Yeah.
And now you're seeing the rise of that skill level go up, a la what we were talking about before.
Yeah, and every minute that you're in it, it's that last thing you just said. Every minute that you're doing it, you're getting better at your primary, like what you do. Like, so it's just about it's 10,000 hours, right? It's repetition. It's getting better, and again, it's and doing it from anywhere you want. So the idea of having virtual capabilities, I just don't. Increasingly we're seeing more and more companies go to hybrid or 100% virtual. The idea of trying to shut down the business completely in order to do a benefits open enrollment is becoming less and less appetizing.
Or the
businesses.
liability to having somebody on site, right? You bring up schools
or
all the
just
time.
Just that 30 to 50% of employees work remotely, right? At least a couple days a week. So how does any strategy without virtual capabilities exist? And so, you as a professional, you need to also, develop and grow your skills in that realm. Like, you need to be able to sell in a virtual environment. Well, how do you do it? Give 10 presentations. You'll have it nailed, right? It's no different than the first time you sat in front of an employee and educated them. But when you're doing that, you feel, the experience is not dissimilar.
And if you're curious about it, we've got a great training program on the LMS about selling in a virtual environment, right? That will at least give you some tips and tricks on how to do it. And look, to your point, everything is nerve-wracking the first 4 or 5 times you do it, but you start to realize there's not a whole lot of difference, right? I mean, COVID changed everything. You talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
When I started having conversations with my mom via Zoom and my dad, who, they're in their, late 60s, early 70s. That never happened before.
Is this thing on? Is this working?
Right? Even worse when it was like the remote was the camera was pointed the opposite direction, and I'm looking down at the dining room table going, oh God, this is painful. But through that, because everybody had to do it, like everybody started to gain awareness around how to use the technology. It became more and more commonplace. So I think more people are just abundantly aware of like, oh, this is an option now. It's just what we do.
7 years old to 70 years old, everybody understands the idea of getting a Calendly link and clicking a Zoom meeting. And while we don't use either of those two technologies, it's all baked in our own. That's in essence like what it is, right? Like, here, click this link. Go and do this session and have a meeting. It's pretty intuitive.
Yeah. One more thing in terms of this before we start wrapping up and putting a bow on this. I always love the example. You talked about it a little bit earlier when you said, hey, just like Uber needs drivers and passengers, and we have to, balance that. We were really talking about that marriage between those things, the influx of people that we have on there. We've also got this, Uber Black sort of thing, right? And being able to skill up for those people who go, man, this sounds really great, but what if I'm like already a case manager and I've already done all this in-person approach and I've gone through it over and over again? What's the next level for me? How do I send? How do I make more money? How do I have more control?
Well, I think we have plans of expanding the trajectory of allowing benefit gurus to become implementation court gurus, right? Like this other vertical down the road. Like Amazon, first sell books, like get really good at what you're doing in the primary way, and then you can add additional roles and responsibilities. But I think the easiest thing to do is to like consider using the same technology that you're working at a guru as, ultimately as like for your own cases. Like, and so a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I don't really need that. Like, it's not really that important. All right. So real simple. One, do you think this is like would you rather have a case with no communication plan and no way to massage employees into engaging, or would you rather have one that has an engagement strategy that leads on average to somewhere between 75 to 85% of eligible employees scheduling an appointment? Like, simple question. And if you can get more than that, awesome. Like, there are cases that do 99, 100% of employees, right? We see everyone. But 75 to 85 on average. I know that was never where we were when I was at Aflac. It was like 20, 30. And then you would sell. People like, oh my God, I killed it. I got 7 out of 10. Well, great, awesome. But there's 100 employees. So you saw 7 out of 100. that was not very good. And I think that this idea of having a communication plan that increases that is only going to be better. And would you rather have virtual capabilities or not? And I think a lot of times people are Frankensteining together a bunch of disparate utilities. You got a Zoom and you got a Calendly and you've got, 8x8
Eight
in
by
the
eight. Yeah.
background and you're trying to do WebEx and you're doing all like it's not conducive. Our system is a much more effective way to accomplish the objectives that we're talking about here. And so I think the logical thing, Hager, is to, if you are open to it and if you are excited about the idea, is to expand your capabilities to learn how to execute. And because, by the way, as a benefit guru, you've noticed we've been collecting data on your experience around the implementation coordinators. We will have an entire rating system for the implementation coordinators as well. That is forthcoming. And that way, when you have an opportunity that comes to you, you're actually going to have data that's going to inform you to be in a position to negotiate more. So, yeah, Hager, I'll work for you because when I work for you, you communicate effectively. You're really, you are well thought out. The schedule was easy to deal with, and you paid quickly, right? You processed the incentive payments in a timely fashion. All right. You did it 2 days after the enrollment was over instead of waiting 45 or whatever the case is. So I think all of this stuff it's that two-way experience, just like when Uber drivers are rating riders and vice versa. And so that stuff is forthcoming. It's going to be here soon.
Well, look, I mean, that transparency excites me, right? Because I think as you're sitting down and you get a chance to really take an honest look at the difference in how this broker, this carrier, this house works, and, individually speak to like all the things you just said, communication on point, payment on point, understanding of the products on point, all those things were delivered. It's only fair if the benefit gurus are being rated, that they get an opportunity to rate the people who are putting the enrollment together. And I think it also talks really highly about what the enrollment coordinators do, right? And so, you're talking about, hey, where do I use this every single day in my book of business? Because I've got, 40 or 50 cases because, that I manage. Well, the opportunity to really go back in there, it could be an opportunity to go and resell the value of getting that employer to do a voice broadcast that says, hey, I love you guys. And because I love you, this is how we're going to do it this year. Follow that up with text messages and emails. It's just a whole other way to take a great template that's already working with all those things managed and laid out and just drop your cases in there. And then again, you talk about making yourself the obvious choice to be a benefit guru. You run a few cases on your own that sit inside of the implementation coordinator. Who we going to next to reach out to those people?
Yeah, well, all of this stuff is speaks to the ability to give yourself greater penetration, greater success, more effectiveness and more opportunity. And so, same thing, right? Like you build a book of business. I used to talk about the Aflac dream when I was there, was open, service, and maintain 100 accounts. Well, my mother successfully did that, and then she retired and she moved to California, and she left all of her accounts back in Chicago, right? And she could still be working today and just doing it remotely, doing all that stuff from like you can move to Palm Springs, move to Puerto Rico, move to Costa Rica, and just manage your book of business. Move to the Virgin Islands, move to a yacht somewhere, sailing around the world. You never have to stop. You can work as much or as little as you want. You do it all remote. So I think there's real value to it. Again, the pain we know is familiar. We know like, oh, if I go to this site, this place, and I sit here in this cafeteria and I can like try to negotiate access and control. I'll tell you, access and control is a heck of a lot better when you have appointments on a calendar and there's reminders going out and nudging people to get you to the dance.
I'll hold to that, brother. I'll hold to that.
Yeah.
All right. Wrapping up here, tell us how you get ready for your day. Like, what does your morning routine look like before you sit down to your computer?
Well, fortunately for me, I had this, my co-founder moved to Costa Rica and he left behind all of his biohacking treats. So my mornings usually start with I wake up really early, which is crazy. So I wake up at about 4:45 and I will take an ice bath. So 4 minutes in 37-degree water. If I can handle it that long, sometimes 4.5, and sometimes the water's a little warmer, but that's first. And then I let my body come back to temperature. And I usually at that point will do a little morning prayer meditation if the sun is up. And usually after that, I'll have a cup of coffee, and then I will go in the sauna, usually for 45 minutes, and then I will do a workout. So I'll work out. I have a trainer that comes 3 days a week. The other couple days is, could be more, it might just be the sauna. To be totally honest.
You're still getting the sweat in, buddy. You're still getting the sweat in.
Yeah. So, but mostly it's putting on my spiritual body armor for the day, and then, tackling it. I'm usually working by 7 or 7:30. So, that's it.
Early jump start to the day. I love it, man. Well, I'm glad to hear you're back in the ice bath, man. There's so many reasons to jump in there and get that cold going for mental fortitude and that vagal nerve, calories burned, man. There's a lot of reasons.
It's miserable. It's like, you never look forward to it, but you're always glad you did it.
Yeah. Always dread it, never regret it. That's what the guy who sold me that said. I was like, you know what? That's a good one.
Someone kept, telling me in a different ceremony, breathe and smile. And so that's what I try to do. Breathe and smile.
That's it, man. That's it. What about last book you read?
I'm reading Seeds of Culture by Dan the Man Bredesen. Yep.
Nice. Very good. And last podcast you listened to?
I love the All In podcast. So I just finished the All In year wrap up of like their winners and losers. So they went through like all the winners and losers for everything. But love that podcast is just fire. It's awesome. 4 brilliant business people that talk all things entrepreneurism. So they're talking about everything from capital raising to politics to presidential candidates to world events. It's just awesome. They're so much smarter than I am. I feel like every time I watch one of those, I like pull away some gold nugget.
Little tidbits. Well, hopefully there's been quite a few golden nuggets to pull out of this one. Appreciate you jumping on the podcast, running this back. We'll have many opportunities to do this again, as I know you've slated a few people. We've talked about some things that are coming up, and for those listening, stay tuned. We're going to have podcasts that we said that are going to highlight things that are going on in the industry, so you get that professional side. We're going to take a lot of the gurus and spotlight them and talk about their journey here and interest into this, as well as all the other things that are much more on the personal side, but equally as important to have that balance in your life.
Yeah, just closing. I just want to tell everyone how grateful I am that they're sharing in this journey. Our tagline is benefiting people, which is kind of a catchy catchphrase, right? Like this idea of like, people are in the wrong benefits, and if you do it right, you can actually get them the right benefits. But the underlying thing is about benefiting humanity, benefiting like the greater consciousness of all of us collectively, so that we can find more joy, so that we can find more of the really important, valuable things. And to me, that's community. That's finding in each other the support, the pillars of guidance, the generosity, the humanity that seems to be lacking. And so I'm just full of gratitude. I have this amazing team of individuals that wakes up every single day committed to the responsibilities and roles they have to delivering value to our stakeholders. And to you, my brother, and my friend and my co-founder, the work you're doing in terms of delivering value to the guru population is the highest priority, and I can't think of anybody else that would be better at leading that charge. And so I'm just so excited to see what 2024 has in store, and just appreciate you and appreciate everyone who's in this journey with us. So with that, it's a wrap.
That's a wrap, baby. Received and excited as well. Thank you for an amazing episode. See you next time.